You ever had one of those weeks where everything seems fine until it isn't? You wake up, go to work, grab a coffee, maybe complain about gas prices or your neighbor's dog barking too much. Life, just doing its thing. Jamal Thompson did too. 38 years old, warehouse manager, father of 2 boys. Lives just outside of Atlanta, Georgia. Drives a used Honda Accord. Keeps to himself, pays his taxes. Doesn't drink, doesn't smoke. Pretty normal guy. Quiet kind of dignity. It was a Thursday afternoon, nearly fall. Trees were just starting to rustle yellow. Jamal was heading home from work, tired, but looking forward to the weekend. His younger son had a school recital on Saturday, and he promised he wouldn't miss it this time. He was running a bit late. Took a back road he'd driven 100 times before. No traffic, open stretch. Just a long, quiet road, and the golden sun dipping low behind the trees. Then the flashing lights came on, blue and red. Siren quick, sharp, like a slap to the gut. He pulled over right away, window down, hands on the wheel. You know the drill. The officer told him he was going 47 in a 35. 12 miles over. Didn't realize, officer. I'm sorry, Jamal said. Honest and steady. The officer wasn't aggressive, not rude, just cold, distant. Wrote up a citation and handed it over. Jamal looked at it. 165 fine. Court appearance optional. Unless he wanted to contest. He wasn't going to fight it. He knew he'd been speeding, even if just a bit. He'd pay it online, get it over with. And that should have been the end of it. It should have been just a story he'd tell his wife over dinner, laugh a little, shake his head at himself. But it wasn't. See, that ticket. It didn't just sit on the fridge or disappear after he paid it. It unraveled, like a loose thread on a well-worn shirt. Tug it once, and the whole thing starts to come apart. 2 weeks later, a bench warrant was issued for Jamal's arrest. He didn't know. There was no knock on the door, no certified letter, no phone call. But the system knew. It knew he missed a court date he never realized he had. And the next time he got pulled over for a broken taillight, 3 weeks later everything changed. He was handcuffed in front of his kids, taken to county jail, charged with failure to appear. Bail set at $1,200. He didn't have it, so he sat. And that's how a good man, a working father who sped 12 miles over the limit, found himself trapped in a cell, fired from his job, watching everything unravel because of a process he didn't fully understand. Now, I know what you might be thinking. How does that happen? Isn't there some kind of warning? Don't they have to tell you? Well, that's what we're going to talk about. Because this story, it's not just about Jamal. It's about how easily the American legal system, even without cruelty or bad intent, can grind down the people it's supposed to protect. How a routine citation can snowball into a life-altering disaster. Not because someone did something monstrous, but because they were caught in a machine that doesn't always stop to ask questions. Let me tell you what really happened, and why it matters to every single one of us. After that first ticket, Jamal did what most of us would do. He put the citation in his glove compartment, got home, and told his wife he'd take care of it after payday. The citation slip said he could pay online. That's what he planned to do. But that week, between juggling overtime shifts and helping his youngest with math homework, it slipped his mind. He logged in to the online portal the following Monday, 4 days after the due date. The screen said the case was unavailable. No option to pay. Confused, he thought maybe the system just needed time to update. He figured he'd call the court in the morning. But what he didn't know was this. Under the local municipal court system, certain minor traffic violations automatically generated a mandatory court date even if the officer verbally said it was a payable offense. And that court date? It was scheduled for the same day as the payment deadline. No separate notice, no email, no text alert. Only a single line of tiny text at the bottom of the pink citation slip. Court appearance required unless payment received before XX. Jamal never saw it. No one had pointed it out. When he didn't show up to court, the judge signed a bench warrant. Automatic. Standard procedure. It went straight into the statewide law enforcement database. Now here's where it gets worse. 2 weeks later, Jamal was driving his kids to their cousin's birthday party. It was Saturday afternoon. He got pulled over for a busted taillight. The officer ran his license, then paused. "Step out of the car, sir." Jamal was stunned. "What's going on, officer?" "You've got a warrant for failure to appear in court." Jamal tried to explain he didn't know about any court date, didn't get anything in the mail, didn't even know he was supposed to be there. Didn't matter. The officer followed the system. He arrested him on the spot. His 2 sons, Sight and 11, sat crying in the back seat as their father was handcuffed and placed in the cruiser. It took 3 hours before his wife could get to them. The boys missed the party. And Jamal? He spent that night in a holding cell at Clayton County Jail. On Monday, he stood before a magistrate judge via video conference. His public defender, who had met him only 5 minutes earlier, didn't say much, just nodded along. Bail was set at $1,200. Cash only. Jamal didn't have it. No savings. No credit card. Just a joint checking account with a couple $100 for groceries and gas. His wife tried calling bail bondsmen, but they needed $180 up front end. A co-signer with steady income. She worked part-time. Just started a new job. No dice. So Jamal stayed. 5 days turned into 10. 10 into 17. 17 days in county jail over a speeding ticket and a missed date he didn't know he had. He lost his job on day 12. The warehouse said they couldn't hold the position. Bills piled up. He missed his son's recital. His landlord started asking questions. And no one, not the judge, not the jail staff, not the prosecutor ever stopped to ask. Did he even know about the court date? Did anyone check if the notice was actually delivered? They didn't, because the process had already moved on. And Jamal? He was just in it, caught, waiting. It wasn't until a nonprofit legal clinic picked up his case that anything shifted. They filed a motion for release, argued lack of proper notice, cited due process violations. But the damage was done. His record now showed failure to appear. His mugshot was public. His employer didn't care why. When he finally walked out of jail on day 18, he didn't walk back to his old life. He walked into something smaller, harder, a little more afraid, a little less free. And all of it, every last part of it, began with a 165 ticket. That's what happened. And now, we have to ask, how could that be legal? And more importantly, how often does this happen to people who don't have anyone to fight for them? Let's talk about the law, what it says, what it doesn't, and where, maybe, it fails the very people it was supposed to protect. Let's break it down. What happened to Jamal wasn't a mistake in the legal sense. It was, by all accounts, a correct execution of the system. That's the part that's hard to swallow. So let's look at the laws behind it. In Georgia, and in many other states, when a person is issued a citation for a traffic offense, the officer has discretion to mark whether that violation requires a mandatory court appearance or can simply be paid online or by mail. That discretion? It can be based on local policy, severity of the offense, or even the jurisdiction's internal procedures. In Jamal's case, the officer marked it as court optional, but the court later flagged it as mandatory appearance. Under Georgia Code Section 4013-20, failure to appear in Curtivan for minor traffic offense can result in a bench warrant. No requirement for a phone call. No certified letter. No proof of delivery. Just that small print on a pink slip. Now, here's the problem. Under the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, Every citizen is guaranteed due process of law. That means you're supposed to get fair notice and a meaningful opportunity to be heard before the state takes away your liberty or property. But what qualifies as fair notice? That's where the law gets murky. Most courts rely on what's called constructive notice. If they sent it to your last known address or included it on the citation, even in small print, they've done their part, whether you actually received it. That's not the court's responsibility, legally speaking. And that brings us to the heart of this. In 2025, many jurisdictions now use automated systems to generate court notices. Some email, some text, some rely on third-party online portals. But none of these are federally mandated to verify receipt. There is no national standard requiring courts to confirm that you actually saw the message. So when Jamal missed his date, the judge didn't ask why. Because procedurally, everything was by the book. Now let's talk about bail. The Eighth Amendment prohibits excessive bail, but it doesn't say bail has to be affordable. That's up to state law. In Georgia, bail schedules for minor infractions are often set mechanically, without consideration of the person's financial status. There's no automatic right to a hearing on affordability unless the defendant requests it. Jamal didn't even know he could. And that public defender he got during the video call? Under Supreme Court precedent, Gideon v. Wainwright had a right to counsel. But in practice, that often means 5 minutes with an overworked attorney juggling 40 other cases. That's not bad intent. That's underfunding. That's what due process looks like in a system stretched thin. Now let's talk public records. The moment a warrant is issued, it becomes searchable. So even though Jamal never meant to break the law, even though he never got notice, even though he sat in jail without conviction, his record shows an arrest. That's public. Employers see that. Landlords see it. And in many states, including Georgia, there's no automatic expungement. You have to file a petition. You have to prove that your arrest was without fault. That costs time and money and legal know-how most people don't have. Let's not forget the deeper layer. Statistically, black drivers in Georgia are 1.4 times more likely to be stopped than white drivers, according to a 2022 study by the Stanford Open Policing Project. And once stopped, they're more likely to be searched, cited, or arrested. That's not just perception, that's data. So while the law may be facially neutral, meaning it doesn't say, target Jamal, its impact can hit people like Jamal harder, more often, and with fewer tools to fight back. This wasn't about malice. It was about a system that assumes if you didn't show up, it's because you didn't care. Not because you didn't know. Not because the notice never came. Not because you couldn't afford bail. And definitely not because you trusted the process. Jamal's case is what lawyers call procedurally correct but substantively unjust. It followed the rules. But did it deliver justice? That is the question we have to wrestle with. Let's take a breath here. Let's not jump to outrage or defense. Let's just sit in this space for a second and ask, how do we make sense of what happened? From Jamal's point of view, this was a nightmare. He was doing everything right, working hard, keeping his life steady. A traffic stop changed that. And not because he ran, or fought back, or lied. He cooperated. He told the truth. He even planned to pay. But he missed a deadline he didn't fully understand. And for that, he was treated like a fugitive. In his own words, I felt invisible. Like I didn't matter. Like the machine had already decided, and my side didn't count. Now flip the script. Look at it from the police officer's side. He ran the name, saw an active warrant, made the arrest. That's his job. He didn't write the laws. He didn't issue the warrant. He followed protocol. To him, it was routine, uneventful. Move on to the judge. They see hundreds of missed appearances a month, thousands a year. Some people dodge court on purpose. Some really don't care. So the system assumes the worst. It has to, otherwise it stalls. They're not asking, did this guy get the letter? They're asking, was it legally sent? Efficiency over empathy. Then there's the public defender. Let's be honest. Most public defenders are heroes operating in broken conditions, underfunded, overloaded, burnt out. The one assigned to Jamal met him over a flickering video link in a tiny room. No privacy. No time to investigate. No room to push back. It's not that he didn't want to help. He just couldn't. Now, let's ask what the prosecutor saw. A man who failed to appear. A warrant properly issued. A court calendar with no room for leniency. The case was minor, sure, but letting it slide? That could be seen as favoritism. Or worse, weakness. The pressure to keep things moving is immense. The court's not a place for nuance. It's a factory line. And then, there's the community. When local news picked up Jamal's story, reactions were split. Some said, that's what happens when you ignore the law. Others said, this is exactly why people don't trust the system. Some blamed Jamal, he should have paid on time. Others blamed the court. How hard is it to send a text message? And somewhere in that noise, the deeper truth got lost. This wasn't about good guys and bad guys. It was about a system that leaves no space for gray. No time for context. No patience for poverty. What if Jamal had been wealthier? Would he have posted bail on day one and gone home? Would his lawyer have had time to challenge the warrant? Would the charge have quietly disappeared? And what about someone who doesn't speak English? Or who has a disability? Or no fixed address? Does the system bend for them? Or does it break them? Because justice isn't just about what's written in the law. It's about how it lands in real life. And in Jamal's case, it landed like a hammer. Not because anyone meant to crush him, but because no one stopped to ask if they were about to. We say everyone is equal under the law. But do we mean equal access? Equal treatment? Equal outcomes? Or just equal paperwork? These are hard questions, but they're worth asking. Because what happened to Jamal isn't rare. It's just rarely talked about. And maybe that's the most dangerous part. So what now? What do we take from this? Jamal's story is one of thousands, maybe tens of thousands. People caught in a legal process that feels less like a path to justice and more like a trap door under their feet. The thing is, the law isn't a villain. It's a tool. It's supposed to protect us, guide us, hold us accountable. Yes, but also shield us from harm. And sometimes when systems run on autopilot, that purpose gets lost. That's when good people get hurt for the wrong reasons. So here's the truth I've come to accept, and it's not an easy one. In America, your knowledge of the law can be just as important as the law itself. You have rights, but rights mean nothing if you don't know how to use them. You have responsibilities, but if no one teaches you what they are, you'll only learn the hard way. So what can you do? If you ever get a citation read, every word, even the tiny print, especially the tiny print, take screenshots, call the court, confirm your court date. Don't wait for them to reach out. Because if something gets lost in the mail, or misfiled, or just never shows up, they're not always going to check in. They'll assume you're ignoring them. And from there, it escalates fast. If you're ever in jail and don't understand why, say something. Loudly, clearly, keep records. Ask for a public defender and demand time to explain your side. And if you see someone going through this, a neighbor, a cousin, a coworker, don't brush it off. Help them navigate it. Because most of us, we're not trying to game the system. We're just trying to stay afloat. Trying to raise kids, pay rent, hold on to a little dignity. And sometimes all it takes is one piece of paper, one missed message, one unchecked box, and suddenly you're not a citizen anymore. You're a case number. So maybe we fix the system. Maybe we demand better notice procedures, bail reform, legal access for everyone, not just those who can afford it. Maybe we make sure the law remembers it's meant for people, not just process. And maybe, just maybe, we stop treating mistakes like moral failures. Because Jamal didn't fail the system failed him. And if it can happen to him, it can happen to any of us. I'll leave you with this. In a just society, the law is a bridge, not a barrier. So the next time you see someone fall through a crack, ask yourself, did they jump or were they pushed? What do you think? Would you have caught the fine print? Would you have known what to do? And if it were you in that cell, what kind of justice would you hope for? I'd really like to hear your thoughts.